guys, welcome back to Jurassic Collectibles. Today we're going to be looking at this. It's the Alan Grant and Compys from the Jurassic Park 3 Hasbro toy line. Now Alan Grant was very lucky in that he got multiple versions of himself created, and in this version he comes with the Compsognathus. Straight off the bat, look at the size of the Compsognathus compared to what we see in the film. It's much bigger. Now I wonder if this is because the figures were made as 3 3/4 inch figures, more like your G.I. Joe figures really, and whether the dinosaurs had already been sculpted but in a scale that was relative to a 6-inch figure. Whatever the case, we'll get a closer look at these guys today. So starting off with the packaging, we've got Jurassic Park 3 logo at the top there, and there's the Spinosaurus just leering in with a giant grin. Here we've got Dr. Alan Grant and Compys in a bold font, and down in the corner, unfortunately this is an old packaging, so it's a bit covered in dust, but it's the Hasbro logo there. Here's Alan Grant in his plastic tomb, and as you can see he might be in danger of his socks catching on fire because the flamethrower is actually spraying towards his feet. And here you can see the ginormous Compys that are more like raptor size. Here you can see the gimmicks that come with Alan Grant, so you can see that the Compsognathus attached to his arms as if they're attacking him, and the other feature is the flamethrower. Now this one again doesn't have a button, unfortunately. It's got one of those mechanisms where you have to push the missile from behind to launch it. On the reverse we have the standard diorama. You can see here the military diver, which has been reviewed on the channel. Go and check it out. And you can see Mr. Kirby there flinging a net onto the dangerous Stegosaurus. And you can see Alan has just booted a ball of fire off the end of his gun. So all that remains is to get Alan out of his packaging. Stay tuned. So here is Alan Grant out of packaging, and I have to say the sculpt is very, very nice. I still think this guy looks like Ashton Kutcher. I'm not sure why, but they seem to go with an Ashton Kutcher sculpt. So Alan's fresh out of Pearl Harbor, and he's ready to jump in the plane and attack some Japanese fighters. So as we go down the body, you can see he's got a really nice brown waistcoat, and all of the buttons have been individually sculpted. All of the folds are really nice in his arms, and as you go down the body you can see his trousers, very tight fitting, and then you've got his boots at the bottom. You can see they've got a nice sort of level of gloss on the boots. Around the back you can see they've painted these detailed stripes on the back of the boots, and as we go up the body you can see it's consistent with the rest of the design. So in terms of articulation, Alan has the usual setup. You can turn his head left and right in a full 360. His arms go a full 360 and they're not hindered by anything whatsoever, so you can flip those right round. He can also do the kung fu kick with both legs, and his legs can go right back, so if you want to you can get him into the splits. And I know how much you love putting Alan Grant in the splits. Huh? I have to say though, in terms of an overall design, I really am fond of this version of Alan Grant. Feels like he's sort of like Indiana Jones version of Alan Grant, and I like that because he had that sort of Indiana Jones feel in the first film. Moving on to the pair of Compsognathus, these are really nice little detailed figurines. They do feel a little bit sort of McDonald's sort of design because they've got no articulation, and they also come on these plastic bases. And I'm never fond of the plastic base. I just wish they'd make the legs a bit chunkier so that they could stand up on their own. They did it with the original dinosaurs from Jurassic Park, and I preferred that because they feel more like a figurine and less like a rubber statue. But in terms of the sculpt, they're both really, really nicely done, and we'll get a closer look at each one now. So here's the one with the curved neck. And you can see he's got his hooked arms so that he can grab onto Alan Grant's arm there. Really nicely sculpted, a really beautiful level of detail, and they've even gone to the trouble of doing really tiny brush strokes for a paint job, and even the eyes are painted a beady black. So in terms of what you get in terms of sculpt, it's an incredible design. They even managed to squeeze a JP3 logo on the leg there. Fantastic. And also the claws are painted on the hands and on the feet. So that's an incredible level of detail for something of this size. Here's his straight-necked counterpart, And you can see again, this is a beautiful sculpt. You can see the rib cage is all sculpted in there. Really beautiful. The only problem is he stood on a rock that's exactly the same colour as his skin, and that's one of my gripes, is when they don't colour the rock that it's standing on. It ends up looking like a cheap sort of one cast plastic. But still, it's a very nice design, and I like the really long tail. Look at that. So here is the feature where the Compys are attacking Alan Grant, and I have to say this is a pretty weak gimmick. The major problem with this feature is that the Compys have bases which really weigh them down. They weren't pictured on the box, and that's something that almost like it seems like they added as an afterthought, but it means that actually hanging a Compy off of Alan Grant's arm is really difficult, and you can see the Compy on the right has already fallen off. He actually won't cling onto the arm. So in terms of an action feature, I have to say this is pretty weak. So here you can see the action feature that comes with Alan Grant, and it's the flamethrower. And it comes with its own little tripod, which is quite cool, so you can sort of mount it on the side of a hill and maybe have Alan Grant sneaking up behind it lying down so that he can flamethrower people from a safe distance. Now what's cool about this is that they've done some nice weathering on the end of the gun to show that the flame has actually sort of tarnished the metal, and I really like that feature. That's a nice sort of attention to detail. Also the fire blob is quite amazing. It reminds me of the fire blob that comes with Boba Fett in one of the newer figurines, I think from Hasbro. But yeah, it's a really nice flamethrower plastic, sort of semi-translucent, and yeah, just looks great. It's got this little ball here, which means that it catches on the spring-loaded mechanism inside the gun. So let's do that now. So this one does not have a button, as I specified before. It's a push weapon. So let's give this a go. Wow, that was quite powerful. So that's good to see. In the past we've had some weaker spring-loaded mechanisms, so to see a more powerful one, that's quite cool. And here's a closer look at the detail on this gun. You can see they've put a lot of nice sculpt work in there, and I really like this tarnished end, the weathering at the end. Really nicely done. Very cool. The only thing about this flamethrower that's quite funny is that it's a little bit of overkill for Compys. It's almost like Alan Grant has gone, I've had enough of you guys clinging on to me. I'm going to get the flamethrower. He's gone for the biggest gun possible. It's almost like going in with a bazooka to take out the Compsognathus, and I find that quite funny. So there we have it. I hope you enjoyed today's look at the Alan Grant variant with Compsognathus and flamethrower. I personally really like the figure. I think the flamethrower gimmick is awesome. The only thing that lets it down is the Compys with their bases being too heavy to hang them off Alan Grant's body. Maybe something like a magnet system, similar to what we saw in The Lost World with Dita Stark, might have been a better option for keeping these Compys attached to Alan's body. Okay guys, as usual, rate, comment and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.